exhibition only degrades a human being's manhood. We do not like this exhibition of one of our race with the monkeys. Our race, we think, is depressed enough without exhibiting one of us with the apes. We think we are worthy of being considered human beings with soul.
Hey world, it's your girl, Sunnyside 55, and I am back with another great video. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and drop a comment if you like this video. Today's topic is St. Louis World's Fair, the largest human zoo. Let's get started. I want to give you a little bit of history of how it led up to the St. Louis Zoo. Okay? In 1859, which was 3 years after Charles Darwin released the book, The Origins of Species. And, Charles Darwin, he was a biologist who came up with the idea of evolution, which is a concept of how humans came about, which is also, accepted in science and schools to this day. But in 1859, P.T. Barnum, now he was a promoter at the museum in New York City. He unveiled a new attraction. Now this attraction featured, what is it? A man-monkey. Okay? People were told this creature, which was actually a person, had been captured by hunters in Africa. The race that was there were swinging among the trees and branches like monkeys, okay? Now, the staff at the museum furthered this claim by making accusations that the creatures have been pronounced by scientists as a link between African blacks and lower animals. In all actuality, the supposedly man-monkey was a black man named William Henry Johnson. Now, William Henry Johnson spent most of his life in, cages and on public display because Barnum wanted to have a hot attraction at the museum, okay? Many reporters had no problem with promoting this lie, this deception of man-monkey or lower race blacks. The New York Tribune wrote, Barnum's performer appeared to be a cross between an ape and Negro. Another news outlet said, the head is shaped like a monkey, but the face is more like that of an African Negro of the lower order. Now, naturalists started proclaiming William as the connecting link between man and monkey. Okay? Now, at this time, you have freak shows. Now, freak shows were exhibits of deformed animals as well as deformed humans, And one of the known exhibits from the freak show is Creole. Creole was a lady from Southeast Asia, and she had hypertrichosis, which is a genetic condition producing, excessive hair. She was put on public display as a link between man and monkey. And just to give you a visual, there is a chart that we will get into later that basically has whites at the top of the chart, blacks at the lower end of the chart, and other races in between. Okay, and in the early 1900s, there was Congo, the ape man, who was usually placed on display with a chimpanzee. But the real lies and deceit of lower stages of human evolution took place at the St. Louis World's Fair. Okay? The fair drew over 20 million people. The St. Louis World's Fair was the largest human zoo. It showcased over 1,000 indigenous people. Okay, now who was responsible for this showcase was William McGhee. He was an anthropologist and he served on the American Association of Advancement of Science. But in 1903, he was asked to head the anthropology department of the World's Fair. So we can basically say that, McGhee started scientific racism This was the first time that science was intertwined with racism. McGhee was a huge believer in Darwin's evolution theory, and he planned to display human evolution with representatives of what he considered lower stages of human race. McGhee designed his exhibitions at the St. Louis World's Fair. And, he wanted to implant the idea of superiority of the white race. And some of these ideas were that white men had stronger limbs, stronger eyesight, and a better intellect. Okay. McGhee was given his platform at one of the most celebrated events in the 20th century. Okay. Remember, the human zoo in St. Louis brought over 20 million people, making Forest Park the most visited site in the U.S. At that time, the fair was also known, for the building structures, for the 22-story high Ferris wheel. The X-ray machine was made public debut, and the ice cream cone and Dr. Pepper. Okay. McGhee had organizers, and they went around the world to different continents looking for indigenous people to put on display. Now, the difference between the freak shows, which were created by, you could kind of basically say like hustlers and scammers, was the fact that the human zoo, at the St. Louis World's Fair, was created with the cooperation of American scientists. So that's the difference between the freak show and the World's Fair. Now, McGhee was backed by scientists at Harvard and Columbia universities, which were also saying Africans were midway between an orangutan and human being. Now, keep in mind, this theory that McGhee has comes from Darwin's theory, okay? That humans evolved from ape-like ancestors. Darwin's theory, the mean blacks and Africans at that time were called savages, contract, animals. And again, he believed that, blacks were the closest humans to apes and monkeys. Okay. Now, there was a guy, Ernest Haeckel, and Haeckel was an associate of Darwin. Okay. And he further pushed this view by creating a chart of human evolution. It showed that Africans or black were creatures that resembled apes or monkeys. Basically, monkeys were, again, the closest humans to apes. Now, McGhee used a similar chart, but he had real skulls, and he was proclaiming that the lowest human, which were blacks again, resembled the highest ape. McGhee saw non-white humans as evidence of evolution. Okay. The belief is that the mentality, physical habits, bodily structure was that of apes. Okay. And, McGhee wanted to show these differences, publicly at the World's Fair. Now, Native people were put on display in villages with a fence around them. He wanted them to conduct themselves as if they were in their natural habitat while on public display. So he took them from their civilization and put them in a makeshift civilization and wanted them to act, normal while being, humiliated and laughed at and mocked. Okay. Also, the people at the indigenous people at the World's Fair were experiments. Okay, and there were special labs set up by the anthropology department to conduct these experiments. Okay, a psychology professor from Columbia University directed the experiments, and in the labs they conducted tests on intelligence, pain threshold, as well as physical features. Some scientists came to the fair just for dead bodies. Okay, they were so fascinated with the brains of the dead indigenous people, and they felt that they could gather more insight on the evolution theory. There were hundreds of embalmed human brains that were stored at the Smithsonian, even still to this day. Some of the people that were brought over were a new people of Japan, which were very hairy. The Pagonias from South America, which were native people that were very tall. The Negritos from Philippines. Now, the Negritos also were marketed as a missing link between humans and apes. But the most exotic people that they found interest in were the blacks, which were called pygmies from the Congo in Africa. Okay, it was believed that many characteristics of the pygmies resembled apes or monkeys. Okay, the pygmies were brought over, by exhibitionist Samuel Phillips Verner. Now, he went with the goal of bringing back pygmies for the fair, but after living with the pygmies, he supposedly, allegedly had told McGhee that, they were human and high intelligent, okay? But he still, brought them back anyway, okay? McGhee did not listen to any of his claims and continued on, with his, exhibits anyway. And in the Journal of Science in 1905, McGhee, he's again stated that pygmies had evolved from apes and had even went as far as to say in the Science Journal that the pygmies were subhuman, okay? Again, pygmies were considered by scientists as the lowest form of humans, okay? And we got to remember that these people have again been taken on their civilization, brought over here to be made a spectacle of. So these people were not thrilled at all about coming over here. And they actually were treated like animals, and were laughed at and humiliated. But one of the pygmies became very, very popular, okay, at the fair. And his name is Atabanga, okay?